You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 22. We are live a little bit later than usual at 7:30, but I wanted to let y'all know that we were going a little live a little later tonight. Absolutely packed show by myself this evening, no guests. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you're watching, please make sure to like the stream, subscribe to us on YouTube, get at us on all social media platforms. As you already know, the QR code in the corner of the screen over that jersey, scan it. It'll give you every bit of the NFL with AJL content, social media, podcast platforms. Get at us, engage with us, leave us a review, like, comment, follow, everything that we do on social media. I appreciate all the love. Know we missed the show last Friday, had a real estate event to get together for, had to service the community there, but I will never forget about the NFL with AJL community here. Guys, we got a packed show. Like I mentioned, the Falcons almost traded for Kyler Murray on draft night. I'm going over every NFC team's best pick from the 2023 NFL draft. Jordan Love was extended by the Packers, but did the Packers really have any choice? The Ravens consider taking Will Levis in the first round, and so much more here on the show. Episode 22 on a Tuesday night. Again, you could have been anywhere else. Thank you for being with us live. Like that stream. Make sure to subscribe. Get at us at the NFL with AJL. And honestly, if you can't find the show, you're just not looking hard enough. So I'm not going to hold you guys anymore. We're going to go ahead and dive right into the best draft picks from the NFC. Just a week ago, of course, we did do the best draft picks from the AFC when I had Jalen from the Unpopular podcast on the show. So let's get right into it. Starting with the NFC North. For each NFC team's best draft picks, NFC North, the Packers. Lucas Van Ness is going to be the best pick for me. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of Green Bay's draft. They took a couple of tight ends. Jalen Reed was the Michigan State wide receiver over Jalen Hyatt and other wide receivers in the draft. And I really felt like that the Packers could have addressed the draft better. But nonetheless, Lucas Van Ness, I think, is going to be their best pick. I didn't like him being picked this high. I thought there were other edge rushers out there, of course, ones that were taken after him in this draft that they could have went after. But they saw something in him. He's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of grit in his game. So that will be the best pick for the Packers. For the Vikings, I'm going to take Jordan Addison. I really did like the Vikings draft here, but Jordan Addison will be my favorite pick. I said he was the best wide receiver coming into the draft this year. I also mentioned he really had that Stephon Diggs kind of Justin Jefferson play style. And that was what the Vikings were seeing here with Jordan Addison. They see that, of course, Justin Jefferson is out there crushing it. But when you have that true wide receiver duo and Adam Thielen just gets out of town to the Panthers, Jordan Addison is 100% the best pick here. The Chicago Bears. I had a couple of choices here with them. I was really looking, I believe Tyreek Stevenson was a great pick. Really like the Roschon Johnson pick out of Texas as well. Bijan's backup or really the second stringer there for the Longhorns. I'm going to go Darnell Wright, though. And like I mentioned in the NFL draft, if there was really any lock in this draft, which what felt like only a few, if any, by the time the way the NFL draft unfolded, it was going to be the Chicago Bears taking offensive line. They do so. A little high for me with Darnell Wright, and I believe he was the first O-lineman off the board, I think at 10. Yes, because the Eagles jumped up, of course, and traded. I would have liked to see other ones like maybe some might call me crazy, DeJuan Jones. We know Broderick Jones was also taken as well. We saw Anton Harrison taken later in the round, but this is going to be a good pick here for the Bears and their best one in the NFL draft. Onto the Detroit Lions. I could have chose from Hendon Hooker. I really could have chose from, they had another. Of course, I could have chose from Jahmyr Gibbs. I could have chose Jack Campbell. I wasn't a fan of the Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell pick, and y'all have heard me talk about that on the show. Hendon Hooker is going to be the honorable mention here because he lands in a great spot offensively. Pretty solid team with coaching-wise in terms of Dan Campbell being at the head coach position. The Lions did have the worst defense in the NFL last year, so that could be some concern for Hendon Hooker. Say all that to say, Brian Branch will 100% be the best pick and was the best pick for the Detroit Lions in the 2023 NFL draft. Best safety off the board, best safety in the draft, playing with Alabama next to Jordan Battle. It was a really nice safety tandem there. So the best picks in the NFC North for each team from the draft: Packers with Lucas Van Ness, the Vikings with Jordan Addison, the Bears with Darnell Wright, and the Lions with Brian Branch. Hendon Hooker as an honorable mention. Let's go ahead and get into the NFC South. The New Orleans Saints' best pick in the NFL draft was Brian Bresee out of Clemson, the edge rusher. We know that I would have loved Nolan Smith. We know that I would have loved a receiver. Maybe not Jalen Hyatt here in the first round because we see that he did fall to the Giants. But the Saints The number one position for the Saints that they had to address in this NFL draft was defensive line. They really only had Cam Jordan there. Shai Tuttle left. David Onyemata left. Caden Ellis left. They weren't having a lot of pass rushers or even defensive linemen in the building, so it was unquestionably the number one need that the Saints had to go after. Going to take Brian Bryce as the best player that the Saints took. Edge out of Clemson. Carolina Panthers, their best pick. Might be a shocker to some people, but I think it's also unquestionably right that it's Bryce Young. He was the number one pick in the draft. They gave up a haul to go get Bryce Young, an absolute haul for him. They move up. Of course, they send DJ Moore out as well. So Justin Fields is going to be having a lot of fun with him over in Chicago. But Bryce Young, best quarterback in the draft. Again, I liked CJ Stroud better because he was a little bigger. He had more weight on him, but Bryce undoubtedly did more with less. And of course, he was a Heisman winner as well. All the respect for CJ because he played his heart out against Georgia. But Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama, best player for me. You just look at the way that he played at Alabama, and with him being that number one overall pick, with him being that quarterback coming in, we'll get into some smoke and mirrors about maybe them not playing Bryce Young for a little bit this year. He's going to play, I believe. He will step in. He will provide immediate value. And I believe Bryce Young, as a rookie, could win 6 to 8 games in his first year in the NFL. But that will be seen as time rolls on. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers' best pick in the draft was Kalijah Kancey. And there was a couple ways that I could have went here, but when you look at what Kalijah Kancey did at Pitt, little bit of a reach for me in the draft. I believe the Bucs took him at about 19 or so. And I have all the respect again for Kalijah Kancey. I'm not taking anything away from him. He was a riser in this draft. He worked his ass off at the NFL Combine, and I think that really did help his draft stock come up. And the Bucs, we know that they're a very solid defensive team. I believe outside of the quarterback position, this is still a Super Bowl roster. Yes, offensively and defensively, the Bucs had one of the best O-lines. They could use a running back. The quarterback position is the biggest need, though. But when you look at the defensive side of the ball, all of the defensive players they brought in over the years, Kalijah Kancey perfectly matches up with what the Buccaneers are looking for. He's going to be able to rush the passer. He's going to be able to be physical, stop the run also if he needs to. So great pick here for the Bucs. The Atlanta Falcons. I wasn't a major fan of their draft. I had them as losers in this draft. And no, not just because I'm a Saints fan and they play in the NFC South with me. I truly thought that the Atlanta Falcons, give me one second, y'all. My headphones are absolutely driving me crazy, but I can still talk while I mess with them. The Atlanta Falcons draft, you look, they didn't really take any, edge rushers. And I know that, or excuse me, even defensive linemen in general. I know that they moved in a lot with Calais Campbell and David Onyemata and Caden Ellis is coming in. But those aren't guys I feel like consistently that are going to really rush the passer. Yes, they're going to be valuable, but can Onyemata stay healthy? And I've been repeating myself. Caden Ellis just started rushing the passer like that as a linebacker with the Saints. And Calais Campbell is probably a year away from retirement, if not two, just really depending on how he performs this year. So there was a lot of different ways, that I could have went with this best pick. And again, I wasn't a fan of the Falcons draft. I wasn't a fan of the Bijan Robinson pick. But Bijan Robinson is going to be the best pick or my best pick that the Falcons made in this draft. When you look at everything that they took overall, I could have went Clark Phillips, the corner, but I didn't like the positions that they took. They did fill some needs decently based on how some fans are going to look at it. But Bijan Robinson, he's going to provide day one. They took him because Arthur Smith knows how to run Derrick Henry or knew how to run Derrick Henry. And maybe he doesn't see Derrick exactly in Bijan, but he's going to be able to really work with him, get that workhorse type of vibe and really mentality going with Bijan, who has a great attitude, by the way. Falcons' best pick here, Bijan Robinson. Now let's go to the NFC East, and I'll start with the Eagles. Jalen Carter is going to be the best pick that the Eagles took in this draft. Honorable mention to Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith, I believe, has a great case for Defensive Rookie of the Year because I think the Eagles are going to pick up on much sooner rather than later that Nolan Smith is going to be able to really play in that elite linebacker position. He could be maybe that next Luke Kuechly, maybe that next Bobby Wagner, but faster, maybe that next, Von Miller, maybe that next Clay Matthews, AJ Hawk, guys that really had that presence in the league, but he's going to be better. He's going to be able to drop back into coverage like some slim linebackers like maybe Patrick Queen or Isaiah Simmons, but also be versatile like a Micah Parsons and still rush the passer like a TJ Watt potentially or Myles Garrett. You're not going to see all of those play styles inside Nolan Smith, but I believe he is that versatile. But as much as I say all that, and I know it's crazy, Jalen Carter, again, best pick for the Eagles here. Going number 8, it was an absolute steal. They trade up for him, give a little bit of a 4th-round pick to the Chicago Bears to make them feel great about it. And Jalen Carter being on that defensive line, knowing how the Eagles rush the passer just with 4, I believe will give Jalen Carter the defensive rookie of the year, but I would love to see Nolan Smith take it home. The Cowboys' best pick. An honorable mention to Deuce Vaughn. Obviously, his dad drafted him, and the emotion was just seriously one of one, running back out of Kansas State. If you haven't seen how the NFL and the Cowboys have leaked how that draft process went and his dad calling his son to draft him, absolutely heartwarming. If you need to smile and you need to see something good in your day, just go Google that. But I think the best pick, actually the best pick for the Cowboys. And you could say it's Deuce Vaughn. I'm going to go Luke Schoonmaker, the tight end that they took. He really fits their scheme. Dalton Schultz just got out of town. Everybody knows that a quarterback is pretty solid and even just about better in most cases when they have a tight end at their disposal. And I believe Luke Schoonmaker could come in day one and really start immediately. I don't think it's going to be a massive presence or someone that's going to run for an offensive rookie of the year type thing, but Luke Schoonmaker will definitely fit that Cowboys system, and we heard that talked about a ton. The New York Giants, Jalen Hyatt. They stole him. They needed him, whether it was the speed, whether it was the catches, whether it was the route running. You could argue that the Giants maybe had one of the worst receiving cores last year. They go and get Darren Waller. They go and get Jalen Hyatt in the draft. And yes, Darren Waller is going to have to stay healthy, and Jalen Hyatt's going to have to be more than kind of just that one-trick pony. But I firmly believe Jalen Hyatt will be that producer from day one. If this is a guy that comes into the league 1,200 yards his first year and 7 to 8 touchdowns, that's solid. That's a steal. That's a guy that you took late in the draft, and he's immediately going to make Daniel Jones more comfortable, who just had an amazing year with Brian Daboll and secured the bag with that head coach. Shout out to the Giants in the way that they're trying to turn around here lately. The Washington Commanders' best pick. They took it was pretty interesting in the Commanders draft how things played out for them, because they took 2 corners, 2 edges, a running back, and then 2 alignment. And one of those corners that they took was Emmanuel Forbes. I believe that was the best pick that Washington made. Excuse me, in this NFL draft. Again, they you can look through all the positions that they went through. You can look at how they assess their needs. Emmanuel Forbes, again, a little bit of a reach for me. I believe Christian Gonzalez, if I'm remembering correctly, goes right after him. So they could have taken either. Obviously, we see Spoon go at number 5, Devin Witherspoon, the corner that Seattle took, but the corner Emmanuel Forbes for the Commanders, best pick that they made. Going on, and speaking of those Seahawks in the NFC West, I'll start with them. JSN, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Yes, I'm talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba. Some people might wonder, okay, why is it not potentially Devin Witherspoon? Or what was the other running back they took? Oh, Zach Charbonnet. I've seen a lot of people saying that they like the Zach Charbonnet pick, and they're wondering why the hell would that happen with Kenneth Walker back there. Zach Charbonnet is your slower but much bigger and just guy that's going to run you over type of running back. He's not going to be your speed back or a dude that will bounce out to the outside. He can, and he's got that toolage to be a multifaceted back like is required in the NFL today. But as much as I did like that pick, JSN being next to Tyler Lockett, being next to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett is getting a little older, but not even that. We know he's talented, but he's just very inconsistent. If you play fantasy football, you know exactly what I'm talking about with Tyler Lockett. 90% of his production will come in probably about 25 to 30% of the total season. And that's just crazy. And that's something that Seattle, with Geno Smith being comeback player of the year, him being a lot better than they anticipated, understanding how they made the playoffs last year, knowing that DK Metcalf can be a top 5 receiver in the league at any moment and was at one point in the NFL within recent years. They knew what they were doing with JSN. They got a nice Pete Carroll type player in Devin Witherspoon up front. Some who said it was the best corner in the draft. I believe that was Christian Gonzalez. Devin Witherspoon was my number 2. But nonetheless, Jackson Smith and Jigba, best tier pick for the Seattle, best pick here, excuse me, for the Seattle Seahawks. All right. The Niners, best pick in this draft. I didn't like the Niners draft at all. I didn't really find anyone that jumped out to me that I thought was going to really be a producer or someone that was just excuse me, let me backtrack a little bit. When someone has an off draft overall, it's hard for me to look in and actually find a player that I like or find a player that I think is going to fit their needs well, when I think they could have taken other players or other positions at times. Excuse me. But the best pick by the San Francisco 49ers, Robert Beal Jr., edge slash linebacker out of Georgia. You see he played at Georgia freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. So all 4 years he played for the Dogs. A ton of Georgia Bulldogs have been drafted into the NFL recently. And we know if you're getting a Georgia defensive player, they're absolutely going to produce. So that's going to be the best pick for the Niners. The Rams' best pick in this draft. Wasn't a fan of this one either. I loved the Stetson Bennett pick, but my best pick is going to be the guard Steve Avila out of TCU. The Rams had an absolutely horrible offensive line last year. They were in shambles with their quarterback. They were in shambles with injuries. A true Super Bowl hangover, to say the least, with the Rams. So they knew what they were doing here, going to get Steve Avila. They need to protect whoever is going to be the quarterback. If Stetson is going to step in and be next up behind Matthew Stafford, if Stafford's going to be able to start, Steve Avila is going to be that key piece that they can thank. But having that protection, that production in the pocket, that protection in the pocket to obviously get on the field and produce for their team. The very last pick here in the NFC for every NFC team's best draft pick in 2023. The Cardinals taking Paris Johnson Jr. And you could have went B.J. Ojolari, the edge out of LSU. You could have went Owen Papo, the linebacker out of Auburn, which I almost wanted to. But they've taken Zaven Collins last year. They took Isaiah Simmons last year and did not pick up his fifth-year option, which I think is absolutely insane. We'll get to that a little later. One of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last year. I want to make sure I didn't mess my mic up. I don't think it did. No. Oh, no. Okay. I think we're good. I saw that I hit it when I was talking with my hands and all that. But yes, the Cardinals taking Paris Johnson Jr. We know that Paris Johnson is someone that was very, very valued in this draft. He was arguably the best offensive lineman in the draft. I believe he was. Absolutely. Of course, you had talks of the Darnell Wrights, the Anton Harrisons, the Peter Skoronskis, the other linemen of the world that were in this draft. But when you look at Kyler's going to need to be protected, or whoever is playing in the position of quarterback is going to need to be protected. The Cardinals did not have a great offensive line last year. They got a brand new head coach in Jonathan Gannon, who is a defensive-minded guy. So if there's one thing they want to be sure about in the midst of all this craziness and maybe having the first and second overall pick in next year's draft, they put 2 and 2 together and take Paris Johnson here. But y'all let me know down in the comments, get in the chat. I haven't seen anyone in the chat tonight about what you think for the best draft picks from each NFC team. Going to take a quick break here, and then we will come right back into the show to talk about Jordan Love being extended. This is episode 22 of the NFL with AJL. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in on a Tuesday night. Please make sure to like the stream, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on all platforms where you're watching. Of course, the QR code in the corner of the screen is every bit of the content for the show, whether you're looking to get us on podcasts or social media. Leave us a review, give us a follow, get in the DMs, drop a comment. We love getting at you guys in the community and engaging on social media at the NFL with AJL. On all social media platforms. And if you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. Super appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. And let's go ahead and get into the news. Dropped about a week ago, but I wanted to make sure that we could cover it by the Green Bay Packers. And there was a lot of questions about this. Were the Packers going to pick up Jordan Love's fifth-year option that from when they drafted him in 2020, pissed off Aaron Rodgers and got him to go with back-to-back MVPs. And now Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. There's a lot happening in Green Bay. Were they going to extend him like they did? Pay him some money. I think he got about $22 million total, about $13 million guaranteed in this one-year extension. There's a lot of questions with this, but the biggest thing the Packers had to look in on, and from me looking in on the situation, did the Packers really have a choice? Was getting another quarterback an option considering their actual situation, whether it was draft capital, again, whether it was Jordan Love's status, you take Jordan Love in the first round. Everybody's got question marks. Analysts, everyone around the league is very curious about this. Aaron Rodgers is curious about this because Aaron Rodgers has a down year or two, a couple years back or a few years back. I remember the Packers only having single-digit wins, and I'm like, man, are we even going to count them in next year? Well, Aaron Rodgers hurt his shoulder. And then you have Aaron Rodgers playing a little inferior. Draft Jordan Love, he goes and wins 2 MVPs. So considering Jordan Love's status, was it really an option to go get someone else? Was Lamar Jackson ever really in the cards? Was taking a quarterback at 13th overall, whether you wanted to pull the trigger on Will Levis or Hendon Hooker, was that really in the cards? Because all the great ones or the ones that were worthy enough in this draft, arguably with Anthony Richardson, were gone in the top 4 picks. So again, I don't think, and rather there was not another option for the Packers and their position with quarterback, because Jordan Love being taken in that first round again. Some people and some teams are totally okay with just moving off picks. Oh, we drafted him, it didn't work, we moved off of him. Look at the Cardinals. Josh Rosen first overall next year, Kyler Murray first overall. They don't care. And they're going to have the number 1 overall pick here probably next year. They just picked 3rd this year, you know? So people saying, oh, when you have someone as a draft player or you draft someone with the pick, you can move off of them whenever. And yeah, I've seen that. But I also believe that, yes, you get draft picks every year. And this is why we're talking about 5th-year options at the end of the show. Take some time to vet it out. Take some time to actually make sure that that draft pick can play for you before you just move off of it. And I believe that's the situation that the Packers are in here with Jordan Love. Jordan Love has only played in a few games. Jordan Love looked good in some of those games that he played. Jordan Love looked not so good in some of those games that he played. Packers fans are kind of split on Jordan Love and what he's actually going to provide for them. But just to know that there was no other quarterback option for the Packers. Jordan Love was the guy. So for them to possibly front on an extension or maybe even front on picking up his 5th-year option, it never really stuck. It never really stuck. I never thought that another quarterback was actually going to come into play. We knew Aaron Rodgers was leaving. Nobody in the league was really shopping their quarterback like that, like we've seen over the past 2 seasons. Everyone's getting paid. Everyone's due for extensions. Everyone's due for 5th-year options. Like the league, this is one of the first times in a while in the NFL where I've looked and I'm like, almost all 32 teams have a quarterback, or they're not willing to take calls. There's some people like Colin Cowherd say, oh, only 5 or 6 teams in the league should not take calls on their quarterbacks. And he goes off to name some crazy list with some people that, yes, we know they're in the tops of the league, but then I'll throw in, occasional just names in there that shouldn't be. But anyways, this is one of the first times in the league where I'm like, wow, almost the whole league is stacked with quarterback. Not stacked with quarterback, but they have a quarterback that they're happy with. And maybe it's a bridge guy. Maybe it's a franchise guy. Maybe it's a guy that's going to get a 4-week probationary period, and then they might throw in the rookie. But I say all that to say the Packers, and I hate it for them because bringing in someone in the draft would have been nice, whether you can go and get an Anthony Richardson potentially, whether you take the chance on a Will Levis or a Hendon Hooker, which I'm glad they didn't do either of those, or whether you make a play for a Lamar Jackson, which I never thought was in the cards also, and I really don't think any of those quarterbacks would have fit. Packers are in an interesting Packers are in an interesting situation, and now you have to face some music with Jordan Love, which is okay. That's absolutely fine that you have to face some music with Jordan Love. But now he has a $22 million contract, and we kind of don't know who Jordan Love is. Like some people can say, oh, Jordan Love, I think he's going to be great. They'll go on these sideways things and say he could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. Well, after Jalen Hurts, who are we really looking at? Like the AFC is just so lopsided to the NFC. So it's a lot of things that can be thrown around for Jordan Love. And hey, I'm not hating on the kid. I hope he's a great player. Obviously, I love the NFL. I love when these guys get their shots in the league. I love when they're able to just really take advantage of the blessing and the opportunity that they have in front of him. But Packers fans, get in the chat, get down in the comments. Let me know what you think about Jordan Love getting extended. Did the Packers have another choice? Are you a fan of the Jordan Love extension? Was getting another quarterback ever in the cards between draft capital, Jordan Love status with Aaron Rodgers there, and Aaron Rodgers even leaving? But ladies and gentlemen, we have to get into some news that would have set the league on fire if it would have actually happened. And maybe for some of you, this isn't going to be major, but multiple sources and reports have said that the Falcons and the Cardinals had a deal in place for Kyler Murray, the quarterback that is, when he walks into next year, will now be 4 seasons removed from the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. They had a deal in place for Kyler Murray on draft night, but the sides could not agree to a deal due to, ding, 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 you guessed it, Kyler Murray's atrocious and crazy contract. I'm happy Kyler got paid. I am. I love Kyler. I love his talent. I liked him at Oklahoma. I know he's small, and I think that's finally starting to wear on him, and I really hate it. I've heard the jokes and the rumors of, oh, Kyler could still go play baseball. Hell yeah, he could. I believe Kyler Murray could be a great baseball player. But I don't say that to bash Kyler Murray's contract. But knowing how his health was, and the Cardinals kind of with a desperate contract move with no real longevity or production for an entire season or playoff-wise from Kyler Murray, definitely made it questionable. So the Falcons would have had to give up the number 8 pick and send some draft picks. Excuse me. I believe the Falcons would have had to give the number 8 pick to Arizona. I believe some other draft picks as well. It wasn't talked about as a major draft package. Some people said it was actually a measly draft package, to say the least. But it would have been draft picks and taking on Kyler's money for the Falcons. Falcons would have given up the number 8 pick to Atlanta, which is interesting because Arizona also had the 3rd pick in this NFL draft that they got a 1, a 2, and a 3 for after they finessed back up essentially to get Paris Johnson that they got from the Texans to fall back out of 3rd. So this would have made the draft absolutely insane. You would have had, whether it broke on the 3rd pick or the 8th pick, you would have had the trade going down with a major superstar quarterback that's got one of the fattest damn contracts in the NFL, a team that's rebuilding in the Arizona Cardinals, a team that feels like they've rebuilt defensively and are finally going to show up on the defensive side of the ball in the Falcons, but still have questions in coaching, but also are looking for that franchise guy. Yes, we know Desmond Ritter's a starter. I like Desmond's tape. Y'all called me crazy. He's got that Jalen Hurts type of esque to him. He's not going to be Jalen. He doesn't play exactly like Jalen, but I see the flashes of Jalen Hurts in Desmond Ridder, a couple plays with the Falcons and some of the time at Cincinnati. So the Falcons, I think they know deep down that Desmond Ridder's not going to be that guy. If he plays out, great. They'll ride it from there. That a Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, potentially type of player, and Kyler Murray, I know that's going to set y'all off in the comments, could have came to the Atlanta Falcons when the Falcons maybe had talks about Deshaun Watson last year, when the Falcons maybe had talks about Lamar Jackson coming in, but then they said that they were not interested in the collusion and all the insanity that we saw going on with the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes, to know that this move could have actually happened. And so, of course, we're going to pose the question of who would have won this trade. I kind of want to go both here because you could say the Falcons. They're more built to win now than Arizona. They just hired Jonathan Gannon, who was coming off of the easiest schedule in the NFL and still gave up 38 points in the Super Bowl, rookie head coach. And even though Kyler wouldn't see the field maybe at all next year, you're going to have Arthur Smith being a better coach over Jonathan Gannon. The Falcons roster and defense over Arizona's after the draft and the offseason, just seeing how the Falcons are played out to be next year versus how Arizona's projected to maybe have the 1st and 2nd overall pick, which is crazy. We got to wait and see how things play out because a lot of people are trashing the Texans for that pick or for that trade, to move up to 3 with the Cardinals. And I'm like, well, we have to wait. We have to wait and see how it is. Because if the Texans, for some reason, win 10 or 11 games, not saying it's going to happen, but last year NFL season was crazy, they might have been okay with giving up that, to get Will Anderson. And if Will Anderson gets Defensive Rookie of the Year and CJ Stroud gets Offensive Rookie of the Year like the Jets and the Saints and teams, have done in the past. But you could also say the Cardinals could have won this trade because they would move off of Kyler Murray, who I regretfully say has not been healthy, who is too small to play in this league, who doesn't like being hit, who has had some attitude issues. And again, I love Kyler. I'm a fan. I damn near bought his jersey, and I've damn near bought his jersey multiple times because I just love the vibe he brings to the table. Truly defying the odds, can spin it like anyone else, can play at an MVP type player, and at an MVP type level. But the kicker, the best ability is availability. And unfortunately, Kyler Murray has not shown us that in his NFL career. He's shown to be brittle. So if the Cardinals were able to have the 3rd and the 8th pick next year, and the Cardinals were able to move off of some of Kyler Murray's insane money, I think the 2nd most guaranteed money in NFL history behind Deshaun Watson. If the Cardinals were able to really get the rebuild going, that would have been crazy. So I'm going to say both teams could have won here. Maybe leaning more towards the Cardinals because if the Falcons gave up that, took on that bad contract just for a guy that hasn't been healthy in 3 seasons, it's going to be very, very unfortunate. And this is just insane to look at considering the Falcons quarterback situation and Kyler's status in Arizona. Kyler was loved by Arizona. We heard multiple reports. We knew Kyler Murray was the number 1 overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals, despite the fact that they had taken Josh Rosen the year before number 1 overall. Cliff Kingsbury comes in at the same time that Kyler Murray does. I called for Cliff Kingsbury job about a year and a half, maybe 2 years into his head coaching career for the Cardinals. And we hear the reports of how they love Kyler Murray. We see the money they pay Kyler Murray, but they were willing to deal him in a trade package. And it just goes to show that the NFL literally stands for not for long. And even if you're the number 1 overall pick, they're probably looking for your replacement later in that draft, if not next year. Maybe they're making calls. Maybe they're trying to get draft capital. I don't want to speculate too much, though. The Falcons quarterback situation. Desmond Ridder. Is he really the guy? Taylor Heineke. Very similar to Desmond Ridder. But I don't think Taylor Heineke plays. Well, no, I actually take that back. I mean, when you look at even Taylor Heineke's grit, the way he can move around the pocket, the way he can make some interesting throws, that's just that. And when I say Jalen Hurts play style, it's just that smaller quarterback, good build, can move around, pretty solid arm, and he's a playmaker. And that doesn't mean you have to be an A-plus quarterback. There's C-plus players in the league that make plays all the time. Excuse me, not all the time, that make plays. But it's the consistency of how often you do it as A-plus, A-minus player, whatever you'd like to be. So Falcons fans, Cardinal fans, get in the comments, get in the chat. Let me know, what would you have done if the Arizona Cardinals had traded Kyler Murray to the Atlanta Falcons on draft night? What would Falcons fans have done, knowing that they took on a injury-prone quarterback in Kyler Murray, knowing that they took on the money, kind of a bad contract as it looks right now in Kyler Murray, knowing that the Cardinals would have moved off now 2 consecutive number 1 overall picks with a 3rd number 1 overall pick in the last few seasons also coming up as well? What would that have looked like? How would that have shaken up the draft? I want to hear from you guys. Get in the comments and absolutely let me know. We're going to take a little bit of a break here. Come right back. Oh, thank you so much, baby. Looking good. I can always depend on you. I can always depend on you to be the hype man. I want to give a personal shout out to my amazing girlfriend leaving this comment here, Taylor Mobley. Get in the chat, comment, hit her up if you know her. She just started real estate classes to become a real estate agent in Georgia. So happy for her. Y'all make sure to get at her on social media at Mobley24, Taylor Leanne Mobley on Facebook. She's probably mad that I'm giving out her info, but I just want everybody to go pump her up, go hype her up. She's going to be a real estate agent in like 2 months, a month, 90 days. She's killing it. Can't wait for her to get out there and absolutely crush it. See, we got a congrats. What's up, Brian? You've been hiding in the chat all night, but you don't want to say nothing, man. I appreciate you hopping in the last show with Jalen. Like I said, sorry I was not on what's it called? Sorry I wasn't on for Friday night. Had a real estate client event I was preparing for. But Brian Muck, good to see you. Good to see you, man. Again, everybody go congratulate Taylor Mobley, my amazing girlfriend, on getting into real estate classes. Now we're going to take a little bit of a break. This is episode 22 of the NFL with AJL. You are watching live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Wherever you're at, please make sure to like the stream, like the video, subscribe on YouTube. We are running it up through the 400s. We are on the road to 1K, 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're at 423 right now, I believe. So if you haven't had the chance, stop over there. Give me a click. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Share the stream wherever you're at, too. Make sure to get at the QR code right there. Scan that. It's every bit of content from the show, every bit of podcast content, every episode we drop, every clip that we post on all platforms. Engage with me. Leave a review on podcast platforms. Get at me in the comments, DM. Any way you like to interact with your pages. I'm there to build a community. I'm there to chop it up with football about you guys. And I'm here to keep it real on the NFL with AJL. Episode 22 is rolling right along. More quarterback craziness, more draft night rumors, and possibly more disrespect from the Baltimore Ravens. You tell me. The Ravens considered taking Will Levis in the first round if Lamar Jackson didn't sign before draft night. I'll say that again. The Baltimore Ravens were considering taking Will Levis in the first round if Lamar Jackson didn't sign before draft night. Notice how Lamar Jackson signs on draft night. Notice how Lamar Jackson's contract was bigger than Jalen Hurts. Notice how it happened hours before the first round, the kickoff, essentially, of the 2023 NFL Draft. And we've had all this season. They suppressed his trade, disrespectful offers, a lot of he said, she said, like Lamar Jackson said. Lamar's requesting the trade. They apparently make the fully guaranteed offer over 3 years. Lamar turns it down. It feels like they mishandled him. I mean, there were a lot of questions of Lamar really being a Raven again. Recent press conference. Shout out to your hair, by the way, Lamar. You definitely got the locks, bro. I'd love for you to share some if you'd like. He said, man, I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I wasn't interested in anyone else's clients. I wasn't interested in talking to agents. I wasn't interested in other teams. I wanted to be here as a Baltimore Raven. But I guess I understand that the Ravens have to cover their asses. It is a business. They got to do what they got to do, because next year, if Lamar Jackson wasn't going to be your starting quarterback, okay, that's fine. You got to go get somebody else. Maybe not fine in terms of the fans and in terms of what people want to see in the league and with the Ravens, but if he wasn't there, he wasn't going to be there. So the Ravens were, again, truly considering taking Will Levis, who was a first-round slip in the NFL Draft, second overall pick on the second day by the Tennessee Titans. I think the 33rd overall pick. But would have Will Levis even been a fit in this offense? I don't believe so. I don't. And my question is, the Ravens drafted later, and I want to check my mock here real quick because I want to be accurate about where the Ravens actually were going in this draft. The Ravens drafted, where are you at? 22nd. So my question is, if you were going to draft 22nd and Will Levis was being considered there, you had quarterback interest on your radar, right? So if there was quarterback interest on your radar, then what the hell were the Ravens thinking about taking Will Levis possibly in the first round? Was there no option for Lamar Jackson to be used as collateral? I know he didn't want to go anywhere else, but he had the non-exclusive tag. 2 first-round picks come up. You could do something with that. Move up to the top of the draft. I don't know. Maybe try to steal the show. And I know y'all call me crazy, man. That never would have happened. They never would have had the capital. Tell me that you called the San Francisco trade up for Trey Lance when they took him. Tell me you called the Bears giving up as much as they did when they traded and went up to number 1 and took Bryce Young. Tell me you called the trade package for Tyreek Hill. Tell me you called the trade package for Matthew Stafford. These packages are crazy. They will literally pull picks and players and compensation out of their hat. Literally, shout out to GMs and whoever can pull it in the front office to make it happen, to go and get these guys. They could have potentially moved up and gotten someone much, much, much better than Will Levis. I don't think Will Levis would have been a fit at all. He didn't have a fantastic college career. He didn't have a good last season. I wasn't a fan of his play style. Very lazy, very, very floating on his throws. I didn't think he saw the field extremely well. Being a product of Kentucky, SEC quarterbacks, it's a little shaky there. It can be a little shaky. And I'm not doubting on SEC quarterbacks, but just for showing perspective of how they play out in recent memory when they go to the league and quarterbacks that are in the league now. So just to really think if this was a possibility and the Ravens would have taken Will Levis and boom, he's their starter, right? Week 1. How different does that Ravens offense look? Does Will Levis start? Is Tyler Huntley going to be the starter? I mean, there were just so many questions rolling around here, but I truly couldn't believe that Will Levis was possibly someone that the Ravens were looking into. And again, I get it. You got to cover your ass. So Lamar's not going to sign. We really didn't know. As more and more went on, I didn't believe Lamar Jackson was going to be a Raven. I didn't. I saw the money he turned down. He said he's not interested in an agent. We heard all the stories. The trade rumor gets suppressed. I mean, there was a lot happening with the Lamar Jackson trade. I think it would have been an absolute fail if the Ravens would have taken Will Levis in this draft. I think it would have been an absolute botch if they would have taken him in this draft in the first round. He's not a first-round player. I don't believe he's even a second or third-round talent quarterback. Think he'd be a day 3 prospect. That's what he was in my book. Wasn't a major fan, again, of what Will Levis was bringing to the table. Ravens fans, y'all let me know, though. How would you have felt if the Ravens would have taken Will Levis in the first round if Lamar didn't sign before the NFL draft? How different would that offense have looked? I don't think it would have been explosive at all. I could argue it would have looked better with Tyler Huntley than it would have with Will Levis. And maybe they were going to use Levis in a trade package. Maybe they were going to use Levis, and I don't know. I really don't. I have no conclusion. I have no explanation for why Will Levis, of all quarterbacks, would have been the one taken in the first round by the Baltimore Ravens. Now, we get into a team that is. Oh, this is a good comment here. I really want to make sure I get this one. Dave, what's up, Dave? Appreciate you on YouTube. The Falcons pursuing Kyler Murray made no sense to me. My guess is the Cardinals want to get off that contract and is looking for a sucker. The Falcons are not in that business any longer. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say the Falcons aren't in that business any longer in terms of what, giving bad contracts or being a sucker for a trade, or just kind of not looking to take on a bad player. Sorry, I didn't mean to take that away there. Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me either, man. It did not make any sense that the Falcons were pursuing Kyler Murray. When you look at, again, the bad contract, when you look at how hurt Kyler was, yeah, maybe if you could have switched around picks in the draft and maybe gotten some compensation, and you were just gonna, I mean, I don't know. Again, I really don't know, because you're taking on a hurt player with bad money. Desmond Ritter's going to feel better at that point, or whoever you're going to have, being the quarterback one at that point. So I didn't understand it either. Again, like you said, Cardinals are trying to move off that contract and look for a sucker. Maybe so. I heard it was going to be a measly trade package, and that probably would not have fared well for a lot of people. And it's no shock that the Washington Commanders are in more scrutiny. I almost said a weird adjective or adverb there on scrutiny. I'm glad I didn't. It would have sounded horrible. I don't even know what I was trying to say there. The Washington Commanders are in the news again for not great things. And there are reports that the Washington Commanders called Andrew Luck last season and asked if he was available to come play. And now the Colts are investigating tampering if the Commanders actually did call Luck to see if he was available. So here again, we have the Washington Commanders, whether it's mishandling the Sean Taylor Memorial, whether it's sewage water coming out of the freaking pipes in the stadium, whether it's Dan Snyder's essay accusations, whether it's the condition of the facilities or the franchise. I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Things are continually coming forward with the Washington Commanders, and this team has now been sold. And of course, this happened while Dan Snyder was the owner. Of course, this happened before, Bieniemy is there and whatnot. But to know that the Washington Commanders actually called a former number 1 overall pick that retired in 2018, that is so crazy to think that Andrew Luck retired 5 years ago from the NFL. To know that they called a quarterback that cried his eyes out at the stand for retiring, and knowing that he wouldn't have rather been anything else than an Indianapolis Colt, former number 1 overall pick, knowing how his body struggled with health, injury, rehab, health, injury, rehab. It was taking a toll on him mentally, physically, emotionally. To know that the Commanders actually made this damn call, knowing that, did y'all know that when Andrew Luck retired, the Colts let him keep his money? That's how much the Colts love Andrew Luck. Fans were asking for refunds from season tickets because Andrew Luck retired. Andrew Luck will be a Colt for life. Not to mention, idiots, Washington Commanders. That is tampering, because the Colts still own the rights to Andrew Luck. We just had a scenario this season, this past offseason with it. It was when I debuted the show. The Denver Broncos had to give up capital to go get Sean Payton because he was still under contract, with the rights being to the Saints. And if they wouldn't have done it in a legal period, or wouldn't have offered something, you would have got slapped with tampering. So again, here we go, Washington. Your team was just sold. I think they're still trying to actually get that officially worked out, which I think was sold to a good group. So, sold to a good owner. New restart, Reich, Eric Bieniemy as head coach. But to know that the Commanders, with all the desperation inside them, again, knowing that they weren't even looking into a quarterback. I heard no real rumors about a quarterback being a possibility here for the Washington Commanders. You take 2 corners, back-to-back corners, actually. Your first and second picks in this draft were both corners. You take 2 edges, you take a running back, and you take 2 O-linemen, which I like the O-lineman pick, because not to mention, segueing into this, Andrew Luck retired because he was getting the shit beat out of him playing for the Colts behind the offensive line. We saw that. That sole factor there of him not being able to stay healthy is why he retired. So, you can kind of ask the question of should Andrew Luck had considered this with new ownership, Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, and the talent on both sides of the ball with this offense and defense, which is crazy to think. They've got players on the offensive side of the ball. They've definitely got defensive players on that side of the ball as well. They've been in the tops of the league for points per game, yards per game in terms of defensive stats. I'm going to say absolutely not, though. Andrew Luck should not have looked into this opportunity whatsoever. Washington had the 7th, 10th, and 3rd most sacks given up over the last 3 years in the NFL. And quarterback sacks were literally the reason why Andrew Luck retired. The team just got sold, and this is the noisiest franchise in the league with the offseason, with the front office issues, without question. Y'all called me crazy when I was on Petty Sports last year when I said Broncos aren't going to be good. They got a brand new quarterback, they got a brand new head coach, and they have a brand new owner. They went on and won 5 games. And Russell Wilson, I will never disrespect him with that name twist. No disrespect to Russ. I just try to keep the respect of players' names. Russell Wilson played the worst season of his career. The absolute worst season of his career to where people are literally saying that he's washed, he's done, he'll never be good again. So I'll go on record again and have a correct prediction about the Denver Broncos next year and say Russell Wilson will be amazing under Sean Payton, and Sean Payton will be amazing with Russell Wilson. Bring it back to the Commanders here. I was talking about the noisiest franchise in the league. Andrew Luck is retired. He's happy. He's 5 years healthy. He's got money. Again, the Colts did not make him pay back any of his contract when he retired. Not the signing bonus, not the bonuses, nothing. They said, keep it, man. You keep it. Because in a way, Colts fans weigh in. In a way, you can say that the Colts failed Andrew Luck. And that's not a hot take. Before y'all go the hell off in the comments, look at what Andrew Luck was given with an offensive line. And you look at the Colts rosters with Andrew Luck, right after Andrew Luck, they had Super Bowl rosters, but they didn't have a Super Bowl caliber quarterback that Andrew Luck would have brought to the table as a quality. So this is just so wild to me to know that the Colts are now investigating tampering on the Washington Commanders because the Commanders allegedly called Andrew Luck last season to see if he was available. And there are reports that have come out. I think Clutch Points just dropped something today saying that either beat writers or reporters from the Washington Post, on behalf of the Washington Commanders said that this did not happen. They did not call Andrew Luck. They did not reach out to his father or his uncle, which, people that were his agents or I think still are his agents, NFL agents, representing that player. There's reports that they haven't. I can't believe that they didn't. I cannot believe that probably the slimiest, one of the worst ran, and now freshly sold teams because of the past did not call Andrew Luck and see if he was available when Dan Snyder was the owner. But Colts fans, Commanders fans, get in the comments, get in the chat. Let me know, what would you have done if Andrew Luck would have considered playing for the Commanders, if he would have played for the Commanders? Should the Commanders be ashamed of reaching out to Andrew Luck? I absolutely believe they should. They look desperate. They look like they have no couth. They look like they have no respect. Yes, Washington fans, I am ripping your damn franchise right now because it just never ceases to amaze me the way that they get in the news. And I'm such a positive person, or at least I try to be, glass half full. I'll even give y'all the benefit of the doubt because we know it was Dan Snyder. But your reputation's still set. Oh, it was just Dan Snyder that did it. No. That's Washington's rep in the NFL world now. That is how people perceive Washington. And until the new owners come in and clean it up, until Ron Rivera tries to do as much as he can, Eric Bieniemy is going to implement it in the offense, more than likely become head coach within the next season or two. They're going to continue to have that same rep. So y'all get in the comments and let me know what you think about the Colts and Commanders fiasco. A little bit of smoke and mirrors here, I believe, from the Carolina Panthers, as there is apparently no timeline on playing Bryce Young per the Panthers GM. Panthers have no timeline on playing Bryce Young. Andy Dalton is QB1 right now. We brought him in because he's a veteran. We know we have an interesting situation with, quote, Bryce Young and Matt Corral battling it out for the QB2 position. And I'm sure this is smoke and mirrors. We hear this, the NFL still kind of in that. I mean, call me crazy. The NFL just a little bit, is still in that sense of, do we play rookie quarterbacks first season? Number one overall pick, you got to do it. Kyler played, Baker played, Trevor Lawrence played. And there wasn't a number one overall quarterback last year. That was, Trayvon Walker. So, I mean, the most recent number one overall picks and quarterbacks have played. And they've played day one. And they've played all preseason. And they've just had to get out there and play. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Rookie of the Year. Kyler, Rookie of the Year. Baker, Rookie of the Year. Just saying. So this can be smoke and mirrors from Carolina, right? But when you give up the haul, I think it was 2 first, 2 second, a third, and a player, they gave up a lot. It was a haul. Panthers fans, you know it. And Bears fans, they understand the haul that they got as well, and they're really going to appreciate that. But I feel like it's a no-brainer that Bryce Young has to start, considering he was the number one overall pick. And again, the haul that Carolina gave up to get him, best quarterback in the draft, Heisman winner, insane college career, playing under Nick Saban, did a lot without a lot in his last year. I know he won the Heisman, looked great. I totally get that. People are going to be like, how can you say he did a lot with nothing when he plays in the SEC for Alabama and Nick Saban? Well, I mean, this is one of the first years in a very long time. Jahmyr Gibbs should not have went number 12. For someone comes in, Jahmyr Gibbs went at 12. He shouldn't have. Brian Branch was even a day 2 pick. Shout out to him. He was the only one to stay in the war room that actually wanted to see himself get picked on day 2. And in respect to that, he didn't want to get out. But, again, I feel like it's got to be a no-brainer that Bryce Young has to start, because Andy Dalton just came from the Saints. You're really going to put Andy Dalton, barring Bryce looks dog crap in the post or preseason, where he gets hurt or just something happens, attitude wise, physically, to where the Panthers are like, we don't want this guy to be the number one. We don't want him to be QB1 walking in. He would have to be the starter, because you're not seriously going on day one to roll Andy Dalton or Matt Corral out as a starter. I just don't believe you do that. I don't believe you do that at all. They just got Matt Corral last year. They're in the number one position for Bryce Young. They moved up for him. They take him. Y'all are probably going to say, Adam, you're giving way too much thought to this. We know Bryce Young is playing. It's just smoke and mirrors. But I had to address it, because this is what got me. Quote, Panthers have no timeline on playing Bryce Young. Andy Dalton is quarterback 1 right now, with Young and Matt Corral battling it out, per the Panthers GM. Excuse me, that wasn't a quote, but just essentially that situation. And, the Panthers GM was like, we have an interesting situation. We got a lot of guys that can compete in the quarterback room. Bryce is clearly still a young player, so we don't know what we're going to do with him. I call bullshit, Panthers GM, and I need to look up your name so I can address it more correctly. Not being disrespectful at all, absolutely at all, but the haul that you gave up for Bryce Young. I believe you want to keep your fan base. Bryce Young is the best option, whether it's between, finding Adam Thielen. I want to get this Panthers depth chart in front of me real fast so I can just pay homage and give compliments to what Bryce Young is going to be able to work with when he is that number one overall starter. God, it's crazy. The Panthers went 7-10 and had the number one overall pick, but of course we know the haul. So you're going to have Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, which we can't forget about, Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, who's a solid pick, DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, who can still make plays in Shenault, Terrace Marshall Jr., who was picked not long ago. You still got Hayden Hurst. You want to see the O-line do better, and you really want to see some better, You really want to see some better presence on that defensive side of the ball. But, not better presence on the defensive side of the ball, better stars or elite players on that side of the ball. And I know there are some. I got the respect for the Brian Burns and the JC Horns, and I even see a Dante Jackson and a Shaq Thompson on here. I got respect for those guys, and I like how they pick up Shaq Tuttle from New Orleans. Not an elite player there, but just to know that they're making moves on the defensive side of the ball, and to know that this poor Jacob Eason at the 4th overall quarterback, man. I remember that guy going from Georgia, blowing up, coming out of Washington. I mean, he really just was starting to make a name for himself in college. But, big respect to the Panthers for building this roster the way that they did. Again, bringing in Miles Sanders, bringing in Adam Thielen, bringing in DJ Chark, drafting Jonathan Mingo. Hopefully they still use Chuba Hubbard well, bringing in Hayden Hurst. They've got some players. Again, if Bryce Young is in a bad NFC South pushing for playoffs, respect to my Saints, we're going to be the ones pushing for playoffs. If he's winning 7, 8, 9 games as a rookie, I'm not going to be shocked, because I know what Bryce Young is capable of. And with Frank Wright, now I just want to make sure I'm getting that right because I have been mixing those names up like crazy. Yes, with Frank Wright being the coach now, great addition. Talked about how awesome it was with Bryce Young being there now. It's got a lot of good potential. It really does. I'm excited to watch Bryce Young in the division. I'm glad that he was drafted there. It's going to be it's going to be fun to watch the Saints deal with Bryce Young, beat up on Bryce Young having to dish it out to the Saints, and just overall going through the NFC South. Panthers fans, get in the chat though, get in the comments, let me know, should Bryce Young be starting day one? The Panthers say they have no timeline for playing him. Who would start day one? Who would be best in your opinion to start day one? If it's not Bryce Young, are you looking at Andy Dalton, Matt Corral's third string, Jacob Eason his fourth string? I believe it's got to be Bryce. You even look here on the depth chart, Bryce Young is first overall there. So maybe the Panthers GM is just throwing us some smoke and mirrors. This is episode 22 of the NFL with AJL. We are live here on a Tuesday evening. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here live with us, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Please make sure to like the stream, share the stream, subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on social media platforms. I love building a community and engaging with you guys. The QR code is always right here on the screen over the Breeze jersey. Will give you every bit of the NFL with AJL content. Scan that for all of our podcast episodes, all of our clips, all of our social media platforms. Engage with me on social. I love getting at you guys at the NFL with AJL on all platforms. I even pull it up right here real quick at the bottom just to show you guys. Boom. At the NFL with AJL on all social media platforms. That QR code will get you exactly where you need to go for all that. And as we get out of the show, we're going to play a little game of fair or foul. Fifth year options. If you're unfamiliar with what a fifth year option is in the NFL, these are going to be for players that were drafted in the first round in 2020. If you're drafted in the first round in the NFL, after your third year, the team has to make a commitment on whether they're going to pick up your fifth year option or not. If they don't, you will become a free agent after your fourth year of your rookie contract. If they do, you'll make an average of, I can't remember what it is in the league, and you'll also be eligible for an extension. Or if they don't option, they have the option means, hey, you're going to be a free agent after this. So let's play a little bit of fair or foul with fifth year option pickups and declines in the NFL. Joe Burrow's fifth year option was picked up, of course. It's a no-brainer, no question. Back-to-back years of Super Bowl and AFC title appearances. Joe Burrow is consistently being talked about as the second-best quarterback in the NFL. He's delivered as the number one overall pick, and knowing that he went to the Super Bowl in his first full healthy season as a starter, coming off the leg injury and still taking the third most sacks in the NFL is crazy to me. So no question he deserved his fifth-year option pickup, and Joe Burrow will soon, more than likely, be the highest-paid quarterback in NFL history. We know that's just how it works out. The Washington Commanders denied Chase Young's fifth-year option, and this falls in line with the Washington Commanders style. I believe this is absolutely foul. Chase Young was your second overall pick a few years ago. Chase Young hasn't been healthy, in terms of the injuries that have happened to him over the last couple seasons, and I can get that. You got defensive players out there. The defense is kind of doing well without him being super consistent. He wins Defensive Rookie of the Year in his first year with 7.5 sacks, plays extremely well. I know injuries have kept him off, but for me to feel like he just hasn't gotten his full stride of his rookie contract yet. He hasn't gotten his full opportunity. And I know it's on him, stay healthy, this, that, and the third, but mark my words, Chase Young, if he is not a Commander, I mean, I get it. They didn't pick it up, so he's going to be a free agent after this year. Someone's going to sign Chase Young for some great money. Maybe they overpay, maybe they value him, whatever. He's going to get paid, and I believe he's going to go to a team that's really going to be able to contribute and needs that pass rusher. And I believe Chase Young is going to provide that. So I think it's foul that the Washington Commanders did not pick up Chase Young's fifth-year option. The Giants pick up Andrew Thomas's fifth-year option. I think that's absolutely fair. Andrew Thomas, O-lineman out of Georgia, I believe. Very fair. Been one of the most consistent O-linemen in the league ever since he came in. Provides good protection on that Giants offensive line. We've seen what what's it called? We've seen what Andrew Thomas has done in the league. We saw what he did at Georgia, and clearly this is why the Giants pick up his fifth-year option. A controversial one. Tua's fifth-year option was picked up back in March by the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to say this is fair because I'm a little bit of a Tua stan. I will still stand on the hill that if Tua does not get hurt in his year with Alabama, that Joe Burrow wins a Heisman and goes first overall, I believe Tua could be the number one pick. He's still taken it fifth overall by the Dolphins because they need a quarterback. And to know that, again, I will continue to say it, to know, damn, what is his name? Head coach for the Dolphins. God, why am I drawing a blank? Dolphins head coach. Y'all gonna think I'm an amateur. Mike McDaniel. I was like, I know it's not Mike Mayock. That's the freaking Raiders guy or whatever. But knowing that Mike McDaniel put together a compilation of Tua's best plays, he told Tua he believed in him. He told Tua he knows he could be big time. He told Tua that he has that dog in him. So we totally understand. I totally understand why the Dolphins are going to pick up this fifth-year option for Tua. I get it. The arm's not big. He's not the biggest. He doesn't play the greatest against stiff competition. But again, a guy that has dealt with some injuries, just now really got the team and the coach around him. Mike McDaniel was very impressive. And that team even had a fight with Skylar Thompson at quarterback in the playoffs. I respect this Tua fifth-year option pickup. I'm going to say it's fair. I know Tua's not going to have the biggest arm. I know he's going to play a lot differently when he comes back, but he's got a team built around him, and I believe the Dolphins are going to do their best to protect him, contrary to what happened in the last season with the concussions and the whole Bills game and whatnot. I know that was wild. I believe the fifth-year pickup is fair, very fair. Tua's got a lot to do in this league. I believe he'll be able to still take some major steps and be, call me crazy, Tua could be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He might not blow you away with the way he plays, but I believe he could get that top 10 status. Justin Herbert, clearly fair. Some might think this is foul. I will forever stand on the hill as long as it happens that Justin Herbert has not had a fair hand in terms of coaching, in terms of health, really with his offense and his defense, whether it's Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, whether it's Austin Eckler, where the defensive line can't stay healthy, so he's having these backups try to basically play defense for him so he doesn't have to put up a ton of points in games. I think I believe the Justin Herbert pickup is absolutely fair. No question about that. One of the, still the best rookie quarterback season we've ever seen. Guy was a top 10 quarterback as a rookie in the league, stepped in, immediately took the leap, and I was very impressed by Justin Herbert. Patrick Queen's fifth-year option was denied. Linebacker out of LSU that plays for the Baltimore Rams, Baltimore Ravens. I think this is foul. I understand Patrick Queen hasn't been able to stay healthy, but Patrick Queen, I believe, is still one of the potential players that can actually be a premier linebacker, can be that force on a defense. He fits with the Ravens extremely well coming out of LSU, being over, with the Baltimore Ravens. I hate that they couldn't pick up his fifth-year option. I also believe Patrick Queen will go somewhere and get paid, be with a team that's looking for that defensive presence. Hey, I don't mind if the Saints take Patrick Queen and Chase Young. That'd be cool. I'd be totally okay with that. But I don't think that it's fair to Patrick Queen to have his fifth-year option decline. So I'm going to say that is foul. I think he's very versatile. I think he plays well in coverage. I think he can, he's a very versatile player. He's one of those versatile linebackers, and I really, really appreciate that about him. The Saints denied Cesar Ruiz's fifth-year option for the fact that he was the one that missed the block when Drew Brees broke his rib and had the collapse lung. Totally joking. But Cesar Ruiz has not been good at all. He really has not been solid for the New Orleans Saints. I've seen a lot of what's been going on with him, whether it's been injuries, whether it's just been not being a good player with New Orleans. This is one of the few offensive lineman picks that I feel like the Saints actually whiffed on. And I totally think it's fair that the Saints aren't picking it up as they continue to draft linemen and move forward to the draft. Justin Jefferson, Jetta's, the gritty king. Clearly fair that they picked up his fifth-year option, arguably the best receiver in the league. Continues to get better every single year. Now is going to have Jordan Addison next to him. I still believe Jordan Addison can win Rookie of the Year, even being a number 2 receiver, because it's going to be a lot of problems having Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. I believe Jordan Addison plays like a Stephon Diggs, like a Justin Jefferson. But I say all that. Justin Jefferson's fifth-year option is absolutely fair to be picked up by the Vikings. Brandon Ayuk's fifth-year option was also picked up by the Niners. I think that's absolutely fair. Another multifaceted receiver, another guy who's very well-respected, who plays a big role in that Niners offense, who's used very well, who gets his touches, his value is understood, unlike some of the other players' fifth-year options that weren't picked up. So I'm very happy for Brandon Ayuk. Isaiah Simmons not getting his fifth-year option picked up, I think, is foul. Some people are saying Isaiah Simmons is a bust. Some saying Isaiah Simmons hasn't made it. Isaiah Simmons is one of the most versatile, one of the best coverage linebackers, one of the fastest linebackers in the NFL. I loved the pick when they brought him out of Clemson. Isaiah Simmons is insane. Isaiah Simmons is fast enough to play corner. He's fast enough to play safety, but they enjoy the versatility that they get out of him, at least I hope, at the linebacker position. Now, Jonathan Gannon did come out and say, look, I love Isaiah Simmons. I really love what he brings to the table. This isn't going to change his role in our defense, but they didn't want to commit to the fifth-year option. I think that's absolutely foul. CeeDee Lamb's fifth-year option was picked up. I think that's fair. He's produced. He's fit in well as that wide receiver one role for the Cowboys. He has not disappointed. He's produced when he's needed to. And the Cowboys love CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb was going to continue to stay a Cowboy. Jerry Jeudy's fifth-year option was picked up. I think this is fair. As much as some people might not like it, Jerry Jeudy, again, a guy that's battled injuries, had a sketchy Russell Wilson throw to him, was dealing with a Drew Lock for a couple of seasons or two, or, for a season or two. We know Jerry Jeudy was a top wide receiver at Alabama. We know what Jerry Jeudy brought to the table. He can be very elite with his route running. He can burn you down the field. He can be that do-it-all wide receiver. And a lot of do-it-all guys in here for the options that got picked up or declined. And I really hate for some of the guys that got the options declined or not picked up. Kind of unfortunate for them, but I think they'll go on and be a solid free agent and be able to garner some money in the market. Jerry Jeudy, though, again, I think that is fair that they picked it up. Sean Payton's going to do a lot with him. Russell Wilson under Sean Payton is going to do a lot with him. The Broncos, I feel like, are in very good hands. Keeping Jerry Jeudy is very smart. He would have had a market, but Jerry Jeudy feels like a guy that's going to be a Bronco for a while. So I totally respect what the Broncos did by picking up his fifth-year option. A.J. Terrell's fifth-year option picked up by the Falcons is fair, despite being the number one targeted corner in his rookie year and giving up almost the most catches in the NFL, almost the most passing yards in the NFL as a rookie. A.J. Terrell has turned it around with the Atlanta Falcons. A.J. Terrell is a premier corner in this league. A.J. Terrell is maybe the best defensive player, thinking before y'all roast me. Of course, next to Grady Jarrett as well. You got Jesse Bates now, but one of the best defensive players, and you could argue he is the best defensive player for the Atlanta Falcons. That is fair. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, fifth-year option, was not picked up. Championship-winning running back, national championship-winning running back coming out of LSU, the 32nd overall pick just a couple years ago after the Chiefs. I think that was the year that they won the Super Bowl. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think it's unfair. And you look, he's only had in a total of 3 years, 1,600 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. That sounds like something a running back one should be getting in the NFL, but he's not getting those RB1 touches. But we've also seen the Jerick McKinnock's come in. We've seen the Isaiah Pacheco's come in, later picks, and that's okay. Those guys have supplemented well, and that is one thing I'll give to Kansas City. They're kind of sealing that from the Niners book. Pacheco's look solid. Jerick McKinnon has looked solid. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked really good, but CEH's size doesn't do him well. On a third down back, he's more of the guy that can bounce outside or catch those screen passes. He is, he broke someone's ankles in his first rookie game on that primetime game on Thursday Night Football. I think it was the Ravens and the Chiefs. He just cuts around dude in the middle of the field and he's gone. So we know he's got talent. I just don't believe he's gotten his fair share of touches. I don't believe he's gotten that full actual fair stride in his rookie contract to actually be able to take leaps. And I think CEH will go to the free agent market and garner a lot of money as well. And another no-doubter is this is the last pick for the fair or foul segment. Tristan Wirfs was Tristan Wirfs' fifth-year option was picked up by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's absolutely fair. Tristan Wirfs was a monster in his rookie year. Had to deal with Cam Jordan in his first ever NFL game, has had to deal with Cam Jordan multiple years now, won that Super Bowl with Tom Brady as a rookie. I believe that was, yes, won that Super Bowl as a rookie with Tom Brady. So he's got that championship pedigree. He understands the discipline that you need in the postseason. He understands how to just really be a very solid offensive line in the NFL. And there's no question as to why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers picked up Tristan Wirfs' fifth-year option because he would have had an insane market. A lot of people would have been able to garner money for him. And it really just would have been something that I don't think the Bucs really wanted to let that get away. I really don't. The Bucs didn't want that to be something that does get away from them, and that's why they do go and pick up the fifth-year option. That has been episode 22 of the NFL with AJL. We're about to get out of here. Ain't nothing like being on the show with y'all, man. The NFL with AJL episode 22 has come to a close. Whether you watch us on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube, make sure to like the stream before we get out of here, please. Make sure to share this episode before we get out of here. Subscribe on YouTube. Y'all are continue to running it up on all social platforms, but especially YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Y'all are definitely doing your thing. The QR code here in the corner of the screen will be every bit of the NFL with AJL content that you can catch. Social media platforms, podcast platforms, full episodes, clips, you name it, we've got it. Engage with me on social media, get in the community, be a part of the NFL with AJL. I love going back and forth with you guys. I love debating with y'all on the show. We chopped it up about every NFC team's best pick tonight. We talked about the Falcons actually almost trading for Kyler Murray. We talked about the Ravens looking at Will Levis in the first round. We talked about Jordan Love getting extended. Roll back the tape if you want to know everything that was episode 22 of the NFL with AJL. I know I've been slipping a little bit on the shows twice a week. When the news is a little slower, I feel like I'm maybe not super prepared for the show that night, as much as I hate to admit. I don't want to put on something not great for you guys. We're definitely looking to be back Friday. Not sure if we're going to have a guest. Episode 23 will be there Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. You guys already know what time it is. Twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The best and upcoming NFL podcast in the game, the NFL with AJL. I see you.